Hi guys, I just found Transit and Green Run references in the new Black Ops 6 teasers. The way these have come together is actually insane, so I'm going to walk you through it with all of these tabs that you can see on my screen here. We're going to go step by step with exactly what I discovered in real time on stream just now, and you're going to follow along as we kind of crack the clues together. So this is the new Black Ops 6 The Truth Lies live action reveal trailer, and throughout this trailer there are hidden pieces of text, such as at the 25-second mark, this piece of text which says Rook. We don't fully know why it says Rook at this time, but there's going to be a lot of stuff like this as we go through this video, so just bear with me. At the 35-second mark, there is a completely different set of text. This is numbers this time, and this is actually Saddam Hussein's palace. If you Google map it, you put the coordinates in, that's what you will find. That kind of makes sense, seeing as he's in the trailer, so that's that covered. Then if we go to the 40-second mark here and we just tab through the frames, you can see that it blinks on screen and it says Sally 8. This is really interesting because Sally 8 is something that we've seen many times before. First of all, just these sorts of tallies are really reminiscent of round-based zombies for obvious reasons, but pushing that aside, Sally 8 can be seen on the Black Ops 1 key art, so if you zoom in on the gun here, not a lot of people have ever really sort of spotted this, like a lot of people just sort of glance past it, but it does say Sally 8 on that original Sally. Now, for obvious reasons, zombies is very intimately tied to the word or the name Sally, partially because of the Mustang and Sally being the upgraded version of these exact pistols in Black Ops 1, but also because Sally is a character in zombies. And if you'd like me to do a separate video talking about the significance of the zombies character Sally, first mentioned many years ago now, then I'm more than happy to do that. It's almost been 10 years. It's actually crazy to think about it. So let me know if you find that fun as a sort of spin-off video, but that's not the main point here. When we saw Sally 8 in the teaser, we were like, okay, that's really interesting. But then just as the teaser ended, the COD blog updated with a new post, and we're going to come back to this particular image in just a moment, but if you scroll down the blog, it points us in the direction of a new weapon that was recently added in Modern Warfare 3, and it says Sally 6 on it. So Sally 6 on here, Sally 8 in the trailer. Does that mean there's a Sally 7 hanging around? Turns out it does. So if we go back to this, you know I said we'd come back to this image. If we blow this up in really high resolution and zoom in on this left-hand side, you can see that on this guy's elbow, it says codename Sally and then VII, which is 7 in Roman numerals. So we have a Sally 6, 7, and 8. Now, there are various reasons why Sally might be relevant in some capacity. Partially, it could be the zombies reference. Partially, it could be the fact that during 9/11, for example, there were references to a Sally. That was a codename that was used as to one of the sort of conspirators at the time. There's more that we can dig into there, and I'll save that for a separate video. There's also some insanely interesting stuff here with regards to this. PRJJNS. Is this Project Janus? Is that what we're seeing here? Project Janus, which was referenced in the intel that we learned about at the very end of Cold War Zombies, specifically being related to what the director is working on, the director being Edward Richtofen himself. Like, it's crazy stuff. Again, that's its own whole can of worms, but just the Sally's thing at face value, really interesting that they're really pointing us towards this in a lot of this marketing, and it's one of the very few things that is referred to in the trailer, but let's keep going. So going back to this original piece of key art that's been released in really high definition now, there are a few other things in here that we can see that might be of interest. First of all, there is this seal that we can see sort of nestled in the background of the shot, and it seems to say something like advanced technology or technological advancements or something. Clearly it's not advancements, it ends in NS, but there's something there. And there appears to be an overlaid image of a globe with some sort of lines that like wrap around the globe, little dots that wrap around the globe. But it turns out that there's another image that was released on that blog page which gives us more of a look at what this full insignia looks like. So this is the thumbnail for an upcoming teaser trailer that's going to be coming from Call of Duty very soon. And it clearly shows Adler is returning, so that's interesting in itself. But if we add up two of the images that we can see on here just in little pieces, number one, just down here, we can see the bottom of a seal. We can see a sort of laurel wreath and it says something about United States. And then in the top left, we can see it says that word advanced again. It's broken up in a different way, but we see the top of a pyramid with 2 stars next to it. And we see that world with the line going around it, and we see the sort of side of the laurel wreath there. So if we're comparing it to this image, this is the pyramid with the top of the pyramid and the 2 stars next to it, and we can see the top of the wreath wreath there as well. So it seems to be that this symbol that we're seeing on the left is actually the same as this symbol on the right. It's just that with this one, they've gotten rid of the Illuminati eye that was in the middle. They've just sort of changed up the design and they put that here instead. So clearly there's something very interesting happening with these symbols, but that's not all that we can learn from these. So for example, here it says Mac V SOG mole deep in CIA. That's what this says when it's rotated because it's upside down right now. And also says subject located in the woods, and woods is highlighted. Now we know that Frank Woods is going to be returning in this game. That's already been confirmed. But what's Mac V SOG? Well, that stands for Military Assistance Command Vietnam. That's what the V stands for, I believe. And then Special Operations Group is SOG. And that's a group that we'll be familiar with from Black Ops 1, for example, because obviously they operated in Vietnam. And the mole deep in the CIA is most likely Adler. I think that there is at least a good chance that it's Adler. So that's interesting. Then on the right-hand side here, we can see the mention of the Gulf. We can also see 1911 written backwards on this little band. And so again, the fact that we've got Sally references and references to the 1911 potentially is interesting, but there's a deeper secret buried in this that I think is even more fascinating. So if we look on the right-hand side here, you can see it says railway, and it also in very, very compressed text, but it is still readable, it says Chesapeake, okay? We're going to come back to that in just a second. If we look up here, there's more map stuff that's very, very hard to make out, but maybe worth looking into in a future video. But if we scroll to the left-hand side, there is some map stuff that is a lot more clear, and this specifically mentions the Potomac River. I don't know how you say it. Potomac, not sure. It mentions Analostan Island there, and then also here it says Potom as well. There's even an old naval observatory that is sort of mentioned in the corner of it. So in researching this, I was like, what's the deal with the Potomac River? Like, why is that on the key art for this game? How could that be so important to the plot of Black Ops 6 and the focus of Black Ops 6? So amongst my Google searches of things like this eye to see like, okay, like, is it similar to the eye that we have on American money, for instance? Well, it's not super similar, so maybe pass that theory aside. And while I was Googling, okay, can I find any logos of United States organizations with the globe on them, and saw this, and I was like, well, yeah, Defense Intelligence Agency is sort of kind of in the right direction, but it's got the wreaths, but the world looks wrong, so it's not quite there, but it could have inspired it. So while I was doing those searches, I searched Potomac River, and I came across this image here, and I thought, that looks pretty quaint, and looks like something that I should absolutely dive into in a bit more detail. Like, this is just speaking to me, it's calling to me, right? So I clicked through to Potomac River, and when you do so, you read that the Potomac River is a major river in the mid-Atlantic region of the United States that flows from the Potomac Highlands in West Virginia to the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland. So Chesapeake Bay was mentioned, remember, on this side in this little corner bit where it says railway, okay? Again, we're still going to come back to that, but remember that point, okay? So the Potomac River flows from West Virginia to Chesapeake Bay. Interesting. What else can we learn about the Potomac River? Well, while I was on the page, I noticed the Great Falls of the Potomac River are mentioned here. And if we dig in a little bit further to these Great Falls, we see that there are these Great Falls series of rapids, and there are also the Little Falls, which are 5 miles downstream. Why am I spending any time looking at these Great Falls? Like, why is that relevant? Well, in one of the most recent audio logs that we've had for Modern Warfare Zombies, we hear Miller talking to Ravenov, and Miller specifies that she has some history at the town of Lib, and then she gets cut off by Ravenov, and Ravenov says, hold up, you were there? You were so young. How is that possible? So we know that in the time period of Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, something happened in the past when Miller, who is presumably 30 or 40 or something, was a child. She goes on to say, hold on, how the hell do you know about that, Ravenov? And they have a little bit of back and forth about it, and Ravenov kind of caps that off by saying that it was a tragedy. Why do we care about this mystery town called Lib? Well, in some of the audio file names for these audio files, they refer to the town of Liberty Falls. So it would make sense for Miller to have been referring to Liberty Falls when she said that she has a history in the town of Lib. Why do we care about Liberty Falls? Well, I just thought that in terms of naming convention, there's a little bit of similarity between Great Falls, Little Falls, and Liberty Falls. And the fact that on the cover of the entire game, we're being pointed in that direction, and not just any old direction, but the direction of the river itself, that seemed like too good a kind of coincidence to pass up. So then I thought, okay, what other connections do we have to West Virginia in the zombie storyline that have not yet been resolved? There's actually a really juicy one that's been a big point of mystery for the last several years. So in the final DLC for Cold War Zombies, we got this. It's a memorandum written for the director. That's for Edward Richterson. And it says as follows. It was a big week down here in West Virginia, okay. Our cover story went live in the town of Redacted, Liberty Falls, where the citizens were informed the nuclear power plant had experienced a tower failure and was leaking. A power plant having a tower failure. We'll come back to that. At the time, most of the town's been evacuated and placed in lodgings one county over. We've established a disaster relief fund in coordination with the local government. We expect relocations and payments to begin in 2 weeks. As you predicted, a few locals weren't exactly keen on giving up their land and were asserting their rights as American citizens to protect their property. We'll see how they feel once we start construction on the wall. Interesting. 3 additional venture companies have established here so we can begin moving supplies in, including a shipping company at the West Virginia Public Port Authority, which is crucial to the 5,000 tons of steel that we're expecting to be delivered next week. We're still dealing with a shortage of boring machines on the East Coast, which is surprising. We are in coal country, which is now impacting the build schedule for our tunnel network. Why the hell are they building a tunnel network here? I'm seeing what we can do to acquire machines from the Midwest. Milwaukee and Indianapolis still owe us a favor, but it will take time to arrange. Lastly, this week was orientation week for our last batch of new hires. Scientists, military personnel, operations personnel, custodians, and a partridge in a pear tree. That's pretty much all the information that we need to cover about this audio log, but it says that's all for now. Looking forward to your arrival, sir. So that's fascinating, okay? We've had this mystery message about this mystery town that at the time was redacted, but we now can assume to be Liberty Falls, where they are building a mystery thing called the wall and a tunnel network, and they've faked a power plant having a tower failure. So let's look into West Virginian power plant failures and how it relates to nuclear power, for example. I found this. There was a workshop on a proposed safety goal held at Harper's Ferry in West Virginia in 1981, where they talked about nuclear power safety. Elsewhere in Virginia in the late 70s, this happened. At Pleasance Power Station, there was one of the most deadly construction accidents in United States history, where cooling tower 2 collapsed and 51 workers were killed. Now, they've just mentioned the churn of their personnel here. Their retention rate is only 30% after the latest round. They're having to hire new people in. They've also mentioned that there is a cover story of a power plant having a failure. This seems like it would be a very convenient equivalent real-world example of what that could be. It is a power plant which had a tower failure. So we're beginning to piece things together here that start to seem like they might be at least somewhat loosely or tangentially interesting to some of the teasers that we had from Call of Duty before, but it gets deeper. So I wanted to dig in with understanding more about Pleasance Power Station and exactly what was going on with this tower failure, and so I clicked here and I started looking at it on the map. And when zooming in on this area of the map, you see some interesting stuff down here, and you're like, okay, yeah, that's fine. But if you just allow your eye to wander just the tiniest little bit, just in the northeast of the map here, we see none other than Green Run itself. Now, I probably don't need to explain to you guys that when I saw this, I lost my marbles. I lost my ability to speak momentarily, because Green Run is the map that we see in Black Ops 2 when you boot up Transit. You boot it up on Green Run. So I'm losing my mind, right? The fact that I've just randomly zoomed in on this very, very precise piece of Earth, and not only does it have links to this piece of intel that we got a couple of years ago in Cold War Zombies and was clearly setting up for the next game, clearly intended to be very mysterious, not only that, but has then been referenced in the most recent game with this town of Liberty Falls. Not only those things, right? But just a couple minutes up the road, we have none other than Green Run itself. We have Transit itself. So I'm starting to lose my mind here, right? I see Green Run and I'm like, there's no way. Like, can we look into, for example, what this train line is that is running here? Because in the original teaser, like I originally told you, it talked about a railway. Maybe there's something we can find with this railway line. And for example, there's bridges here too. So like this bridge here, could that be the Transit bridge? Or maybe this bridge, is that the Transit bridge? So I looked at it on Google Maps first of all, and I noticed first just something that's pretty funny is that the Jug is a restaurant across the road, of course. Like, that's insane. Also notice Greenwood Farms. But if we move away from this for just a moment here, let's go back to one of these searches that I did originally for the Potomac River. So this Potomac River, I was like, okay, the first thing that's come up is this town. What is this town called? Well, its name is Harper's Ferry. And if we look into Harper's Ferry in a little bit more detail, we find that, first of all, I was looking for a bridge that looked similar to the Transit Bridge, right? And I found this ferry truss railroad bridge runs into Harper's Ferry, and look at the design of it. It looks so similar to the bridge from Transit. Like, it has the exact same metal kind of structure around it, and it goes to a tunnel through a mountain, just like in Transit. So I was like, this is insane at this point. Like, there are far too many things here that seem to be aligning to really feel transit-y. I mean, even stuff like this just reminds me of Transit, the derailed trains that we see all over that map, right? So I started digging further. I was like, okay, first of all, are the buses the same as the Transit bus? And I looked up the buses. This is what the bus looks like, okay? Then I looked up just some vlogs of the area. There's some really interesting history stuff that went on here. And I found this guy's vlog, and he finds this like little root cellar, jail cellar type thing. And part of his vlog was this church. And so I was like, oh my God, we can use the church as like a waypoint to tell us whether or not this is Transit. Like, it's all well and good finding that it's literally called Green Run. Like, that is in itself pretty mind-blowing, just the fact that we found Green Run here. But can we find some piece of kind of conclusive evidence to really put the nail in the coffin? So I looked up the original church, right, that I'd spotted in this guy's vlog, this church just here. I looked that up and I was like, well, it's partially transit-y. Like, it does feel a bit transit-y. The road that comes in the back here. Also, if you just go up the road from this church, there are ruins, which feel kind of narky, to be honest. But looking at it a little bit more, I wasn't really fully convinced. I was like, it's thematically vibey. Like, the Transit Church has kind of got a similar vibe to it, but there's something missing. So I Googled the Transit Church, and I was looking into the design of the church, right? It's got this very, very specific symmetrical silhouette. It's got this doorway in the front area specifically, and obviously leads to a spire at the very top there that's in the middle of the church, right? Where on earth could we possibly find a church of that design? Well, I'll tell you, it's not this church in Harper's Ferry, it's this church in Harper's Ferry. Look how similar it is. It's literally the Harper's Ferry Historic District church is this. And this was pointed out to me. I have to give credit here to E-Riot or Eriot in my chat while I was live streaming, doing all of these discoveries. It's the same church, bro. It's actually mind-blowing how similar they are. Like, if we put these both on screen for you to just look at and compare right now, that is insanely similar. That is genuinely ridiculous how similar these are. And for me, it's the nail in the coffin. Like, we've got the entirety of the United States here, and we just so happen to be zooming in on the very specific area where this power plant accident happened, exactly as the intel that referred to it in Black Ops Cold War said that it would do. And then when we go just a little teeny tiny bit up the road, we're really not going far by any means. Green Run is right there. It's screaming transit-inspired remake similar to D Machine from Black Ops Cold War, where they took elements of Nakaran Toten, they put a new spin on it, they used maybe one or two actual physical structures from the original map, but then the rest of it was entirely different. That's what is screaming at me right now as Liberty Falls, the first zombies map for Black Ops 6. It's just a theory right now, but it's a theory that I've got pretty high conviction in, seeing as Green Run is right here. It just feels like it lines up too damn well to all be coincidences. So tell me, am I crazy or am I cooking? If you think I'm cooking, the best two things that you can do right now, number one, is you can click subscribe so you don't miss future videos like this from me as I continue to investigate and discover all this stuff live in real time on stream with you guys. But then second is I posted a video about the first Black Ops 6 Zombies teaser yesterday. That's linked on screen right now. Click through to that if you want to learn more about how the Chaos storyline is potentially being brought back in this new Black Ops 6 story as well, and what that means for the future of the Zombies story. I'll see you there.